On today's episode, nothing like a little haters ball. We're going to talk which teams it's okay to hate the most in 2026 here on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Always appreciate the folks tuning in, especially here on a Friday, August 22nd. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. My name is Ryan Blackburn. I'm the host here at Locked On Nuggets. Solo today. Swipa is still on vacation. He's bouncing around the country and the continent, just having a grand old time. He should be back at some point here soon, giving Matt Moore the day off as well. But I'm here at Locked On Nuggets and also at Mile High Sports. Did a Pickaxe and Roll podcast earlier today. Make sure to go check that out as well. That would be awesome. And we're going to talk about a variety of different topics. We'll go over, hey, Nikola Jokic and Serbia are getting ready for EuroBasket. That's fun. The Nuggets that can change their reputation the most for this upcoming season. Curious to hear what Nuggets fans have to say about that. But first and foremost, we're going to kick it off with a good old Friday topic, Haters Ball. Our friends over at DNVR love to do this as well. And I heard a very interesting show from them a couple weeks ago or so. But I wanted to circle back on it because I feel pretty interesting. Like, it feels like there's a lot of different threads to pull for this upcoming season. It should be very fun. Where's Embiid at says, titles like this make us Nuggets fans look bad and insecure. No, titles like this make you click on the show. That's the most important thing. And then we're going to talk about it. We're going to be logical about it. But look, here's the thing. Every NBA fan base has a team that they can hate. Every NBA fan base has a team that they are, I think, frustrated with or annoyed by. And I think Nuggets fans are no different. I mean, here's the thing. Like, is it insecure for Nuggets fans to not like Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers? No, because Nikola Jokic has 3 MVPs. He's clearly cleared that threshold in terms of who he is as a player, but it still feels like there's some residual hate in the heart for a team like the Sixers and a team like Embiid, or a player like Embiid, excuse me. Like, is it insecure to hate on the Lakers and to want them to have bad things happen to them after this is now Denver's time, and you can absolutely feel some validation and some vindication in terms of, oh yeah, you don't like how they really handle themselves and you don't like the way that things have gone. No, they just got gifted Luka Doncic. I was looking at our analytics on Locked On Nuggets here. We just had people don't fully realize this. The live reaction that Matt and I had to Luka Doncic getting traded to the Lakers, it still is getting views. It's the most viewed video on this channel by far. Lakers fans love to circle back to that video and have a great time just reacting to our hate, to our despair that they just were gifted Luka Doncic out of nowhere. So yeah, gonna feel pretty good about when the Lakers struggle or if they go out in the first round sad again like they did this past year. Absolutely gonna hate it, and it's gonna be just fine. That's what sports is all about. It's rivalries, it's validation when your team does well. But if your team doesn't win the championship, which, I mean, let's be honest, Denver may not win this upcoming season, but you can certainly take some pleasure in other teams struggling along the way and going through the same sort of trials and tribulations that you have as well. So here are some teams that Nuggets fans, you can absolutely feel good about when they struggle. And what I mean by that, it's not about injuries or anything like that. It's not about hey, something really traumatic happens to that fan base that's okay, you can be human, of course. This is sports hate. This isn't anything major. This is about, hey, When a player stubs his toe or something like that, then you can laugh. But when they break their leg, that's not really a laughing matter. There's some differences there, of course. I think that for the Oklahoma City Thunder, when Nuggets fans can kind of look in on that particular rivalry and say, hey, you guys won. You won the championship this past year. Now Nuggets fans can look at their attempt to repeat and how difficult it will be. The same sort of trials and tribulations that the Nuggets had in the 2023-24 season after winning in 23. OKC is going to find it more difficult in some ways. So Nuggets fans certainly going to feel pretty validated that, hey, maybe OKC is just not the next dynasty if they don't win the championship again. They obviously are going to be a great team, but Nuggets fans are absolutely going to feel some sort of validation and vindication when OKC struggles. Seeing a lot of notes about Minnesota in the comments. Obviously, like Minnesota eliminated Denver in 23-24 in what was a pretty unfortunate way, where Denver gets down 2-0 in that series. They claw their way all the way back. Minnesota wins by 50 in game 6 and then comes back from down 20 on Denver's home floor in game 7. So yeah, if you're a Nuggets fan, you can absolutely feel good about when Minnesota struggles. That's not a question at all. It should be like, that's how sports are supposed to be. So I hope everybody feels and isn't like so it doesn't have to be an insecurity or anything like that. This is what sports are all about. And so Nuggets fans can know that they're in a really good position. And maybe that means that Minnesota's not. Maybe that means that Minnesota struggles. I happen to think that Minnesota is going to be pretty good. Where's it beat that says beefing with the Wolves would be like beefing with the Pelicans. Pointless. I disagree, because the Wolves have been to the Western Conference Finals multiple times, like 2 times in a row, including over Denver in both years. So I don't think it's pointless at all. Minnesota's also won every game that they faced against Denver. So when Denver, inevitably, they'll find a way to get them back. They'll win some games at some point here, or maybe they'll play them in a playoff series. If Denver ultimately puts down Minnesota, then that's going to feel really good for the Nuggets. And you can absolutely, like, you know that the Nuggets fan base is going to take some pleasure in that. They're absolutely going to make it feel like they're going to dig in the spoon a little bit into Minnesota and basically say, oh yeah, it's going to suffer. It's going to be fun. The Lakers, obviously, that one's an obvious one. Whenever the Lakers struggle, Nuggets fans are going to feel really good about that. Like, that's how it's going to be. That is a team that was gifted Luka Doncic by a dumb trade by Nico Harrison. So obviously, anytime they struggle going forward and anytime the Nuggets are still able to make it work, that is going to feel good. I don't know if because Denver last year really struggled with that matchup. Part of it was because of the lack of spacing Denver had. They didn't necessarily have a great initiator next to, actually they did have, like, Russ is a good initiator, but his weaknesses were very clearly on display in some of those Lakers games. Christian Brown, same thing. Michael Porter, in some ways, same thing. Like, there were definitely some weaknesses in those particular matchups for Denver. So how do they handle that? How do they evolve? That's going to be something that they have to worry about and figure out. But I do think that those 3 teams in particular are going to be the ones that Nuggets fans are going to be hate watching the most. Whenever they struggle, that's a good thing. It makes watching throughout the season more enjoyable for a fan base, where on days where you don't play, and there's not that many, because 82 games, you're obviously going to play a lot. But on days where the Nuggets don't play, let's say the Wolves and the Lakers are facing off against each other. You know that one of those teams is going to lose. Therefore, it's a good day. It's a good day. That's at least how Nuggets fans, I think, can feel through that and how they can really project that. So we will see what happens. Did something just happen with Russ, or are you guys just projecting as something that could happen? Brandon Johnson, who's got the beanie, the OKC beanie. OKC is not going to fail, LOL. Well, you say that now. You feel like you're on top of the world after winning the championship. Coming from experience, Nuggets fans, of course, feel like they were going to repeat, and it looked like they were going to repeat in 2024. There were a lot of people that felt that way, including nationally, that felt very strongly that was going to happen. And then it just didn't, because something just happens. It could be injury. It could be guys failing at the wrong time. It could be, hey, another team steps up and is just way better. I do definitely feel like OKC should still be the favorite. That's not a question. But I definitely know that it's going to be harder this time around than it was the first time. Like, OKC had a very simple run. Now I think the West is even better than it was this past year. And that should be scary to OKC, who's trying to navigate a whole bunch of different situations. So going to be fascinating. I'm curious to see how it breaks down. When we come back, which Nuggets players are going to change their reputation the most in this upcoming season? We'll be right back here on Locked On Nuggets. All right. This podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by our good friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't really name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving a bunch of money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put your organizing off your finances, if you've put that off, Monarch is here for you. It does the heavy lifting. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without touching a spreadsheet. Basically, when I was trying to figure out how much money I could put together for a vacation that I wanted to take up, I found out, hey, paying for a few extra things that I wasn't supposed to be paying for, some subscriptions that get caught up in the woodwork. There's a lot of reasons to go and find Monarch Money, because it'll help you increase your savings rate, easily review your finances, and then just have a clear view of your financial health. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at Monarch Money with code LOCKEDONNBA. We'll be right back here on Locked On Nuggets. Back at it, Locked On Nuggets. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Let's talk about the Nuggets players and their reputations right now. It's always interesting because I was initially going to do the show on the 2K ratings that have dropped. Jokic is tied with SGA at 98 overall. Jamal Murray's at 86. Cam Johnson and Michael Porter tied at 83, which I think is very fascinating. Aaron Gordon, for some reason, is only an 82 in that game, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I feel like it's pretty clear that Aaron Gordon's a better player, or certainly the third best player on the Nuggets. I think he's certainly carved that out. But it got me thinking, which players' reps are in a different place than maybe they will be after this season? Because hypothetically, Denver has a really great year. Lots of guys playing deep into the playoffs. Yes, it's even deeper than hopefully getting into the second round. Which Nuggets player can change their reputation the most this season? Jokic is obviously going to, if Denver were to win a title, he goes from being a borderline top 10 player of all time to a definitely top 10 player of all time. I do think that that would be pretty significant for a lot of people. You start talking about if Jokic is the best center in NBA history, certainly would be peaking at that point. Very few players in NBA have ever reached that kind of threshold. Jamal Murray, I think, is one of those guys that if Denver were to be successful, if they were to win a title, if they were to go pretty deep, then one of the big reasons for that would be Jamal. It's not going to be I don't know if he can get to that all-star level on a consistent basis in the regular season, but I also don't know if he has to. Just showing up and being the delivering guy whenever like Jokic is getting double teamed or triple teamed on a consistent basis, just having that other player to initiate on a consistent basis and kind of getting back to being that Robin to Batman, I do think does make sense because Murray he was an 86 in these 2K ratings. I went and looked over it, one of the 2K sites. That's 44th in the NBA. 44th best player for a guy that got like over 50 million a year to be like one of Denver's highest paid players and one of the most important players going forward for the team. So his reputation, I think, is both good and bad. Like there's a lot of Nuggets fans that don't necessarily feel great, but if you deliver a title, does it really matter? Like you start to like kind of paper over some of those things if you can. And I do think that Murray is one of those guys that like the contract becomes a little bit less of a talking point if you're just winning titles. If you've won 2 titles with him as the second best player, it means a little bit less, I think. So that I think has certain potential there. Aaron Gordon obviously has a really great reputation right now around the NBA. Some of the clutch play that he had, the outside shooting that he's put together, I don't think his rep can change that much. I really do think he's stamped just in terms of the kind of player that he is, the connective piece that he is. Cam Johnson, kind of like in that same boat. Everybody feels pretty good about who Cam Johnson is as a player. Not much can really change with a great season for him because I think a lot of people are just expecting that. Christian Brown, there's a lot of people that still feel like he's extremely dependent on Jokic. What would a good season, what would a great season look like for him? Well, what if he's adding a little bit more off the dribble game? What if he's adding a little bit more, maybe pull-up shooting, some things like that in either the mid-range or the three-point area? I think that that's fully on the table for him this year as the Nuggets try to kind of add to their team and become a little bit more diverse around what Jokic does. There's something to be said. Like he could absolutely change his rep. Bruce Brown, I think, is already in the process of changing his rep where everybody's thinking, okay, last 2 years, he hasn't really been on the radar for anybody. He will be on the radar for people because like everybody's like, oh, he's going back to where they won the title. Clearly that's going to happen. So we'll see what it looks like for him. Tim Hardaway, that's not really changing much of the rep. Peyton Watson, though, I do feel like could go from, I think there's a lot of people that see him as potential versus production, potential versus impact. He can absolutely become one of the best perimeter and interior defenders on the wing in the NBA. There's no doubt in my mind that like he has that ceiling because of both his athleticism, his timing, his reaction speed, his willingness to go for these shot blocking opportunities, but also like clearly there is a desire for him to be great and he wants to be like showcased a little bit on the offensive end as well. He has an opportunity to change that rep because there's a lot of people that don't think he can do that. There's a lot of people that don't necessarily believe in that particular way that he's going, but could he do it? Absolutely. And if he does, that really changes the perception of who he is as a player. So wouldn't surprise me at all if that was something that really happened. Jonas Valanciunas, I think everybody understands who he is. There's not a lot that he can really change. Julian Strawther, could he become a more definitive, like consistent bench player for Denver, where last year he was in the rotation in large part because the Nuggets needed him to be? Now, what if it's because they want him to be in the rotation? What if it's because they want him to be out there? They not just, it's a need, but from a different perspective of need. Yeah, they have other options like a Tim Hardaway, like a Bruce Brown, like a Peyton Watson, but they need Julian Strawther out there because he's so good as a scorer off the bench. That would be, I think, a large change for Julian Strawther, but also for the Nuggets in terms of what they can expect from him going forward. Jalen Pickett, I think a lot of people have concerns about him if he were to be stuck in the rotation, if there was an injury. Let's say Jamal goes down, Bruce Brown elevates to the starting unit. Does Jalen Pickett run that second unit well? I think he will. I've compared him to Jordan McLaughlin of Minnesota before, just in terms of you feel really good about him being the third string point guard, not necessarily great about him being the second string. But what if he's just closer to Tyus Jones or somewhere of that range where you're starting to really feel very good about him as that backup, whether it's Monte Morris or Tyus Jones or someone of that nature where they just step in and you feel really comfortable about that. There's a lot of potential for these guys to change the rep. And I do think that of the main guys that I've named, maybe Zeke Naji is another one where he goes from being what I think a lot of Nuggets fans view as kind of a disappointment because of the experiment that he's had at center, not necessarily finding a home. Maybe he just moves over to power forward and is like, okay, now that is a really great player that you just need to have out there on a consistent basis. That would be a crazy rep to change at this stage of his career, but we'll see what happens. Maybe there's an opportunity for it. But of the guys, I really do feel like the players that can shift things the most are Jamal Murray, Bruce Brown, and Peyton Watson. Bruce, I feel like it's already in the process of starting, but Jamal could definitely, like, you go from being somebody who's very Jokic dependent to somebody who can really lead a second unit. There's at least opportunities for him to do so with a second unit that has a little bit more depth, a little bit more versatility than it did before. And I wonder if Denver could just turn those non-Jokic minutes into something that's more of an advantage with Jamal kind of out there leading the charge. So we'll see what happens, but let's take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Nikola Jokic and Team Serbia here on Locked On Nuggets. All right, final segment of Locked On Nuggets. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Obviously, Matt and I will be back on Sunday. Not sure when Swipe is going to be retuning in. He's currently traveling the world, and we love to see it because he works so hard and has been such a consistent part of what we've done here over the course of this past couple of years. And he's getting a well-deserved break. That dude works so hard. So very excited to see what he can do going forward and like just what the energy is going to be like going forward. That dude has been, if you've seen any of the Instagram stuff, any of the Twitter posts, he's wearing funny hats. He's in funny places. He's going to have a lot of stories when he gets back. All right. Let's talk now about Nikola Jokic and Serbia. They played Slovenia yesterday on Thursday, August 21st. And that was in one of the final preparatory matches that they have for EuroBasket. And Serbia dominated. They just throttled Slovenia. Luka was out there by himself, basically. And Slovenia just didn't have the depth or the talent, really, to compete with Serbia. They certainly weren't as connected. Not only does Serbia look like the most talented team in the field of a whole bunch of teams, like Germany looks really good. France doesn't have as many of their top guys, and that definitely is a factor for them. Like they don't have Gobert, they don't have Wemby, and obviously they will have some other players that will step in. Like Yabusele was so good for France in the Olympics. Fournier, I believe, is still playing, and I'm not sure about Batum, but they still have talent, of course. But like Spain is going to be out there. They're going to be good. Latvia is playing pretty well. Obviously, Jonas Valanciunas, Domantas Sabonis, and Lithuania will be out there. So it's going to be interesting to see what Jokic and Serbia are ultimately able to do, but they are so clearly the favorite in this event that it would be a surprise, I think, if they didn't win, given not only the amount of talent that they have as a team, but just where they are and what other teams have done. It just feels like it is Serbia's opportunity. It's their time to shine. And it doesn't always work out. I remember back a few years ago when it felt like Serbia was going to get it done in EuroBasket, and they lose in the round of 16 to Italy. Like people were shocked when that happened, but ultimately it happened because Serbia wasn't connected enough. They didn't make enough defensive plays, and they made mistakes at the wrong time and just kind of let it spiral. And that's sometimes how it can happen in a tournament like this. But for Nuggets fans that don't know, EuroBasket is basically You get, I believe, the top 20 teams in Europe across the European continent, and it's through FIBA. You play a group stage for the first 4 games. You have 5 teams per pool, I believe, 5 teams per group. The top 4 teams all advance to the elimination stage in what is a 16 team bracket, and it's knockout. So anything can happen. It's just like the NCAA tournament where, hey, the favorite looks good, but if you get a heater from one of those underdog teams, anything can change that. Anything can happen. So that's obviously what happened to Serbia the last time they were in this tournament. They do not want that to happen again. So I'm curious to see what it's ultimately going to look like. But Jokic looks very good in this tournament. They don't necessarily have to use him that much, but they will. They will as they continue to get through, but they're going to keep using a bunch of these initial games as preparation. Like, I believe that they're playing Estonia on Wednesday. I believe they're like 28-point favorites in that game. So if that gives you any inclination of what they're going to be facing for the first few games of this tournament, they're not worried about the level that they have to reach in comparison to some of these other teams. But it will eventually happen, and they do have to sharpen up. They have to be the best version of themselves at the right time. And so what that means is Jokic will eventually get more post touches. They'll eventually really start to play through him. They will rely on him as a playmaker, as a rebounder, as like the big body that he is. He looks massive against most of these teams, and he'll be dominating on the offensive and defensive glass. So that will be his main responsibility, as well as making any shot that gets down to him. But a lot of it is going to come down to, is Serbia making enough shots? Are they, when they're moving the ball and creating some good opportunities for their team, are they going to be able to make the shots that matter? And so based off of how they played the Olympics last year, I do think that they're ready for it. It does feel like it's that time for them, and we'll see whether they can actually get it done or not. But it's a massive factor, and I wonder how it's going to impact Nikola heading into the 2025-26 season. He looks physically charged, like he looks ready to go. I wonder, like, is it actually going to impact him? Is his mentality heading into it? Maybe. It depends on how they finish, how they play. But I'm sure that Jokic will be in a better mood if he's bringing home a gold from EuroBasket and a winning opportunity for his team in Serbia. Like, it does mean a lot to him. So I hope for his sake that he will be doing that, and I hope that he locks in, because it does feel like a great opportunity for him, a great opportunity for Serbia, and we'll see whether they can get it done. It does feel like it's their time, and usually, like, Pau Gasol, Marc Gasol with Spain would be winning these tournaments and playing very consistently in these tournaments all the time. Germany, obviously, they've won some tournaments here before. They've been at the top of their game for a while. France obviously won a silver medal last year as the home country in the Olympics, and they've been at the top for a little bit too. So we'll see what it ultimately looks like, but it does feel like it is Serbia's time. So it should be fun. I am looking forward to it. Folks, that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Nuggets. Really appreciate the love and support on the show. We will be back after the weekend. Matt and I will, of course, be live on Sunday night, as we always are, and going to be getting into some EuroBasket stuff then. But more than that, we're going to start to do some content with regard to the NBA Top 100. That's going to be that's the Locked On NBA Top 100. That is ultimately going to come out in just a few days, I believe. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. We'll talk to you guys next week.